All right, dogs, welcome back to the film room. I'm Rufio. Today we're going to be looking at film from the Week 17 game between the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens of the 2018 season. Obviously not the result that most Browns fans wanted and Baker Mayfield clearly wanted, but I thought we saw some really interesting things from Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield in this game. I just wanted to break down the four verticals concept that we ran quite a bit. So before I get to the film, we're going to take a look at the play diagram here. So this diagram is from the 1999 Oklahoma offensive playbook, the year that Mike Leach was the offensive coordinator of Oklahoma. I believe it was 99. But this play is, it's widely run. It's maybe one of the most popular plays at every level. And on the surface of it, it is kind of just four people streaking deep. But to me, what determines the success of this play oftentimes are those little adjustments and freedom that quarterbacks and receivers have within the play to make adjustments on the fly. So, obviously that the play is named all verticals or four verticals because you are sending four vertical routes down the field. These are typically going to be two near what would be the college hash marks, a little bit outside the pro hash marks, and then two on the outside between the numbers and the sideline somewhere. With this play, you're hoping to get a single high coverage. So typically the quarterback is going to be reading that single high safety. You have two players kind of in the seam, and that safety can't play both of them, right? So quarterback can kind of look the safety off, try to get him one way, deliver the ball to the other seam, or just pick whichever one he likes the best. Some teams will read this with what I would call a peak read. Essentially, you're reading an outside receiver, either X or Z, looking for your best matchup. And, pre-snap, you're trying to get a feel for that coverage. And if the defense is going to solo that guy and you have, Michael Crabtree, let's say, on one of Mike Leach's Texas Tech teams against some poor, collegiate defensive back who has no hope of matching up, then you might throw to the outside guys. But typically, most of the time, you're going to look at that pre-snap and either sort of lock yourself into that receiver or write that off pretty quickly and try to get onto the safeties. So obviously, again, you're hoping to get a single high coverage against this play. It is nowhere close to as good with a two high coverage. With two deep players back here, you can typically defend, kind of halfway between two routes a little bit better. A lot of times in, like a two deep man under, you'll also have defensive backs who are very, very close to these receivers who are going deep. And if the other team does have good corners who can play man to man, that safety can kind of cheat to the seam route. So with a two deep coverage or, quarters or something like that, it's just going to be tougher sledding for this concept against that kind of coverage because there are more people starting deep. Now, you will see something from this Leach playbook, and I'm going to show you a couple different versions of this play as well, which is this little dotted arrow right here, and that would signify basically what's called a sight adjustment that a receiver, typically it's going to be a sight adjustment that the receiver will make on the fly and run a different route, break off his route. So, essentially here for H is going to head down the seam, try to win deep, and if he sees the safety, deep safety camped out back here in a too high coverage, he'll simply break that route off. Here it looks like it's at about 10 yards, 10 to 12 yards, something like that. He'll break that off in a curl is their plan here. This can be a sort of a pre-snap signal. You often see quarterbacks making a hand signal to a receiver, and that could signal them that, hey, this guy's playing you off. Break this off for the little curl route or the comeback. So this image here is courtesy of Chris B. Brown of smartfootball.com, one of the best football writers out there in terms of bringing scheme and strategy to everyday people. So I recommend you check out his blog if you haven't already. He also works in a number of outlets. He's worked at Grantland. He's worked at New York Times. He has work all over, so check him out. But here you see another diagram, also from that doubles formation. So instead of H here, it's a Z, split receiver. But you get the same concept, right? You have potentially a slant here. A lot of times that'll be a hot read, where if somebody blitzes, he'll have to break that route there. And then basically at 12 to 14 yards, he's going to pick the angle where he can win. So, if he sees the free safety, he continues down the seam. If he sees that safety come out and play sort of a two deep, he can try to get a post, bend this to a post in the middle of the field and try to split those two safeties. Or if there's just, a whole bunch of people back here or something, he could break this off in kind of a cross or a dig route here. You'll also see in this version of the play comebacks that can be either tagged or sight adjusted on the outside of the field as well. So to me, this is a very popular play. Almost every team runs this from high school to the pros, especially if they're a passing team. But what really makes this play successful is the adjustments that are made to the play, right? These little things about how much freedom do you give your guys to read the coverage and find a way to get open. Because if you just kind of lock 4 people in just streaking deep, in my opinion, you're not going to have a ton of success with this play. This is like the number one play that teams start with. How do we defend a pass? A lot of times they're going to start with how do we defend 4 verticals because they know it's coming, and it's such a good play that every team is going to run it. So again, it's about these adjustments. It's also about the different ways that you can kind of run this play and the different looks that you can create, matchups you can create, the way that you can make a defense get into a certain coverage and then try to exploit that coverage. So one example of that would be this kind of formation here. And now you can see instead of that doubles look, that twins look where we have 2 receivers to each side of the field, we now have trips to the right where we're running that 4 verticals from. And this is a college playbook, so these are pretty wide hash marks. You can see we're all the way on that left hash mark here, but it is running this from trips, and trips is a notoriously difficult to cover concept from a too high coverage, especially a cover 2 type of coverage. So you'll often see teams roll to a single high coverage. So that's one way you can kind of play that game within that game. Try to scheme this play up is to use trips and then run this from trips to try to get people to rotate to that single high. The play's good against single high, and hopefully you have the advantage there. But these are the 2 normal ways that people run 4 verts, either running it from a twin set or from a trip set like this. All right, so what was interesting to me that the Browns did is we actually ran this. You can see this pretty early in the first quarter, 1st and 5, so perfect time to take a shot on a play. Hopefully even if we fail here, we can get in a manageable 2nd and 3rd down early in the game. So why not try to see how the Ravens respond to this? But we ran this play, this 4 verts play. You can actually see we send Duke Johnson in motion, and we run this from what is called quads. So instead of trips where there's 3 receivers, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 eligible receivers to one side of the field. And another thing that was opportune about this play, again, you see that ball on the right hash mark. So Kitchens is calling this with, it makes it a little bit easier with the ball just being spaced that side, us being able to create that horizontal stretch and spread out these 4 receivers, even though they're all kind of crammed into that left half of the field. So I believe on this play we have Johnson out wide. This is Perriman here inside of him, Landry inside of him, and Njoku lined up, split just slightly off the line of scrimmage. And I believe this is Callaway down here to the single receiver side. A lot of defenses are not prepared for quads, especially when it's not kind of and nothing you put on film before, when it's not multiple week preparation, kind of like some weeks in the playoffs, teams get more time to prepare. It's really not something that's very common, simply because when you put this many receivers in one half of the field, they kind of have to be bunched together, so it's easier to cover 2 people with 1 guy. So this is, make no mistake, this is a weird kind of look for the Browns to show, and I'm not convinced that the Ravens were entirely ready for it. You see them in this too high safety look. You see the linebacker pointing. They're kind of trying to communicate, and it doesn't seem like they maybe get everything communicated before the ball is snapped. So, I've shown you from twins, from trips, of how to run 4 verts. But essentially, it doesn't matter where you really lined up. The concept is the same. You're looking to have one guy, in this case Johnson, get wide, sort of between the numbers and the sideline. You're looking at one guy to get up the seam, another guy to get up the opposite seam, and then another guy to get to the other side of the field. And so you're creating that really good horizontal stretch across the field with 4 receivers. The 5th eligible guy is usually going to run a shallow cross or some sort of outlet route underneath. And that way, if just all the defenders just drop underneath and sink to take away those 4 verticals, hopefully you get that guy underneath in a favorable situation where you can get him the ball in the open field and maybe he makes a guy miss and who knows what happens. So on this play, again, the Ravens seem to be communicating and they do not seem to be ready at all to help stop this play, which is tremendous for the Browns. You can see Landry is the one that's going to kind of break his route. He's going to adjust his route based on what he sees. With these two deep safeties sinking deep, he's not going to win deep of them. And this guy kind of zones off. This linebacker zones off underneath him. So Landry just kind of breaks his route off. And instead of really trying to press it deep here, he just sits in the hole. And he is open if we want him there. However, Baker sees something he likes even more, and that is Brashad Perriman on a corner who lets him get even. And in the NFL, especially with a guy with Perriman's speed, that phrase is going to be, if he's even, he's leaving. Baker gets just enough hesitation out of this safety right here to also, allow Perriman to break free. And that is as easy a touchdown completion as you're going to get, 40 yards down the field in the NFL. So this is the first one we ran. Again, quads, 4 verticals, and you can see Callaway on the shallow cross underneath here as that outlet receiver. Another thing you see that leads me to believe that the Browns are running those kind of sight-adjusted routes, giving individual players the freedom to break their route off in certain times, certain situations. When Duke Johnson runs his route, he presses that defensive back for a good 15 yards, and then he obviously sees the ball's out at this point, but he can put on the brakes and run like a comeback here or a big curl route. So for me, it's very encouraging to be seeing Kitchens enabling guys like Landry, like Johnson, and like Mayfield to read the coverage on the fly and make the adjustments to get open within the play. That's something that requires a lot of trust from the coach on behalf of his players. And, that trust can either be betrayed or it can really pay off in a big way. You let your players play freely and, let them do what comes instinctively to them. All right, so not too long into the second quarter, the Browns would call upon this play again. It's 3rd and 5 this time, ball on the 30-yard line. And in this situation, the Browns really need a score here. Down 10. Lamar Jackson at this point in the game has been running all over the place, and the Browns really need an answer. So here again we have Johnson in the backfield. We motion to quads, and this time instead of being the wide outside guy, Johnson comes as the second guy from the sideline, and the Ravens are a little bit more ready at this point. Obviously, you get burned for a TD, you start making adjustments, and the Ravens are pulling a lot more people, as you can see, over to this quad side of the formation to prevent us from just streaking deep here and, flooding that side essentially. Let me get this out of here. So as you can see, when the Ravens make that adjustment, they send, 3, 4, 5, 6 players over 4 here. They're left with absolutely no deep help this time on the side with Antonio Callaway. And not only do they not have any deep help, they're playing press man, which is, obviously very dangerous thing to do here. Callaway, and this is one area that, we should all as Browns fans watch for Callaway's development, is how does he get off press at the line? He's not the biggest guy, but he's not tiny either. And with his speed and his suddenness, if he can kind of, have enough physicality or enough just kind of wiggle that he can escape at the line of scrimmage and beat press man coverage, that's going to be a really good step in his development as a wide receiver. So here he does a great job of shaking that press man, getting deep of that corner, and Baker Mayfield just drops a ball in the bucket there. Perfect pass on that sideline, and that's another big chunk play. So, this time you can see a little bit different flavor of the 4 verticals. If you remember last time, it was all 4 of the quads that were the verticals. Here, as the play plays out, Johnson is going to be the one on the shallow cross coming from that side of the formation. And then Callaway obviously is a part of the verticals from the single receiver side. So, we are showing the Ravens here quads. They do seem to be prepared for that flood coming from that quad side of the formation. And to us, this is really the same concept, right? We send 4 guys deep. We send 1 guy in a shallow cross. Maybe we have to teach him a different place to stand, but Duke Johnson's a smart guy. He can learn to stand out wide and run deep. He can learn to stand, in the slot and run a shallow. That'll be fine. And so to the Ravens, however, this looks so much different, right? because now, you're ready for the verticals with your safeties from the quad side, but you have no help from the single receiver side. And are you ready here? Obviously they're ready for the crosser, but are you ready for that shallow crossing route coming from and going to different sides of the formation? So again, credit to Kitchens here, small tweaks, and tweaks that for the Browns don't feel like much, but for that defense where that's coming at you, it's a lot of adjustments and talking and mental preparation to be able to effectively defend this play. And obviously here, the Ravens can't. All right, so on this play, I believe it's third quarter. Yeah, so just coming out of half, even further in a hole, we really need some plays here, but 1st and 1 somehow. And we run 4 verticals again, but this time we put some more window dressing on it. And this variation on a theme that you're seeing is something I love from play callers, something I love to see from Kitchens and the Browns. But this time, instead of running this play from quads before the snap, we were going to use this pre-snap jet motion to turn this into quads after the snap. So obviously before the snap, we have trips here, 3. But after the snap, you'll notice there becomes a 4th receiver on that side. So the Ravens have to do this, passing of people off here. And as somebody, comes out on this side of the formation, one of their defenders is going to have to leave to go cover him. So you're needing to pass somebody off to somebody from the other side. But here again, but here the receivers who are not in that motion obviously are all the 4 running the verticals. We see in this instance 2 deep safeties, but this safety here, right, gets distracted by that bender that's going across the field, and they do not cover Jarvis Landry anywhere close to him. He is literally 5 yards open and waiting on this ball from Baker, and this is a walk-in touchdown. All right, so here we are in the 4th quarter. Down a few scores here, down 9. 6:26 in the 4th quarter, 2nd and 15. We call upon 4 verticals again. So again, we have our quads formation here. We have Njoku, who's the split tight end here. And one of the things about 4 verticals, obviously, if you have the quarterback, you have 4 people running vertical routes, and you have 1 running that shallow cross or other kind of outlet route underneath, you only have 5 linemen in the protection. So, at this point in the game, the Ravens had said, all right, we've had enough of this quads formation. We've had enough of these 4 verts. We are coming after you when we see this again. And here you can see that they blitz 2 of their players off the edge, including the players that are immediately over Njoku, who could be covering him, the closest. So, you'll see here the rest of the receivers are running that same 4 verts play that we've been running, all 4 verts from that quad side. You see the receiver here to the top of the screen running that shallow cross. But you also see, as those players blitz, Njoku just turn around and put his hands up. And the reason he's doing that is because Baker must throw this hot. This is a sight adjustment, and it's an adjustment to beat that blitz that you tell one of your receivers, hey, if both of those guys lined up over you, if you see them blitz, you're going to break your route off, and you're just going to turn around, and we're going to throw you that ball on a quick route before that rush can hit home. And that's exactly what happens here. Great read of that blitz by Baker. Great read of that blitz by Njoku. He turns around, he's open, and while that is not the kind of game-breaking 40-yard gain that we've seen from some of these 4 verticals plays, this is the kind of gain that's going to keep this play alive. Right? If you don't allow your receivers to sight adjust, if you don't allow your players to make these adjustments on the fly, if you don't trust them to do this and you lock them in and say, no, you're running this vertical, you're running this fly route, no matter what, the other team can check out of their single high coverage, they can blitz you, and they can blitz you out of this play. So one of the ways that you protect your best plays is by running counters and constraint plays, as I might call them, but another way you do it is by building in adjustments to beat the defenses you're going to see, and this is a great example of that. So from the end zone angle, you can see a little bit better what this protection is. you can see that we are sliding to the single receiver side, which is this side of the field here. That is where they have Suggs, who's their best pass rusher, so we can slide to him. However, when we slide and J.C. Treader heads that way, that means if these three potential rushers all blitz off this side, we have two guys to block them, and even if we do a great job of picking them up, we can't block them all. And that's where that hot adjustment comes in. Njoku has to be the one here to break this off and get the ball. And, we read this well. We get the ball out before 99 here is a chance to duck back inside. He's obviously unblocked to the quarterback. And then Njoku does a great job of making a safety miss in the open field. Stop me if you've heard that before. And picking up, some yards after the catch as well. So, again, that's a hot read coming out of 4 verts. That's how you protect the play. So, here we are again. It's the fourth quarter. Minute 35 to go. Down 2. We need points. Again, we go to the quads formation. And you know what? They haven't stopped us running 4 verts so far. Why not try it again? So, again, we go from quads. And this is the original version of the play. I believe this is Perriman running the cross here. So we at least switch our personnel around. But this is the same one that Perriman caught the TD on in the beginning of the game. Here they are finally prepared with a single high safety to take away the deep threats. They get some pressure on Baker Mayfield, and they make him move out of the pocket. But, again, in terms of sight adjusting, reading the play and just running a route that's going to get you open. This is Landry here working the seam, the front side seam of this play to where Baker is scrambling. And, he just sees, hey, there's no one between me and Mayfield. I might as well keep scrambling as he scrambles. And he makes a wonderful layout diving catch with under 2 minutes to go to get us a big chunk of yards. All right, so sadly, we went back to the well just one too many times on this play. You'll see that we're down to fourth quarter. This is 4th and 10. Game's on the line. Minute 6 left. We need a first down here to keep this win alive and get us potentially into field goal territory. You'll see once again the Browns go back to that quads formation. And yes, of course, we're running 4 verts. So this time we run our version of it where the single receiver is a part of the verticals. So we can see all 22 players from this view, which means that this is the deepest guy in this whole defense. And when you see something like that, you can pretty much assume blitz. Unless one of these safeties is, and Eric Weddle could do this kind of thing. I mean, he's that good of a player, that kind of Polamalu or Brian Dawkins kind of guy who can, bluff blitz to the line of scrimmage and get way back into deep coverage. But that's not what we end up getting here. We end up getting that blitz that they're showing. On this play, we have that shallow cross coming across the field from the quad side of the formation. And you can see that we have it open at least momentarily. The nice part about this is we get a natural pick here from this seam to the shallow cross. And we basically adjusted that shallow cross to aim for the sticks. So you can see that player here, I believe it's Landry, is going to kind of be, not running across the field so much as trying to just get beyond the sticks and catch that ball. But unfortunately at that point, we'd already seen an interception by C.J. Mosley. So here it is from the end zone angle. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 7 players who could all blitz immediately. So if all 6 of these come, or some combination of 6, you can't block them all again. You got to get rid of the ball early. That's what Baker does. But Mosley here blitzes, puts on the brakes, and then has the wherewithal to just get in that passing lane, read the quarterback's eyes, and get his hands up. And unfortunately, it fell right into his hands. So, again, I love to see these variations on a theme from Kitchens. I love that we're willing to do something weird like running quads. You almost never see that in the NFL. And, obviously we went to the well one too many times here. But on the whole, this is a very successful play for us against the league's top-ranked defense at the time, I believe. It's just a great play. But really what drives it is the ability for individual players, whoever you're kind of choosing as a coach, whoever you're freeing up, for those players to be able to make those side adjustments and run routes that are going to get them open and not just locking them into one thing. All right, Browns fans, so that's going to wrap it up. I'm Rufio. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you go to dogsbynature.com for all your Browns news and analysis. I'll see you in the next one.